Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Hello, happy humans, and welcome to the podcast. It's America's Still Beautiful, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brooklyn Tanner. It's the podcast where we give you all the happy stories in the world, in the news, and we're going to start right now. Today is August 21st. Blowing through August, like I always say. I feel like it's going so fast. And on this day in history, in 1959, Hawaii became a state. It became a part of the United States. Did you know that? August 21st, 1959. And aren't we glad it's a part of us? I think it's so wonderful. The modern United States receives its crowning star when President Dwight D. Eisenhower signs a proclamation admitting Hawaii into the Union as the 50th state. The president also issued an order for the American flag featuring 50 stars arranged in staggered rows. This new flag became official on Independence Day of the next year, 1960. And the first known settlers of Hawaiian Islands were Polynesian voyagers who arrived sometime in the 8th century. The 8th century. That's so far back. Then, in the early 18th century, American traders came to Hawaii to exploit the island's sandalwood, which was much valued in China at the time. In the 1830s, the sugar industry was introduced to Hawaii, and by the mid-19th century, had become well established. American missionaries and planters brought about great changes in a Hawaiian political, cultural, economic, and religious life. In 1840, a constitutional monarchy was established, stripping the Hawaiian monarch of much of its authority. Then, in 1893, a group of American explorers and sugar planters, supported by a division of the U.S. Marines, deposed the Queen, who was the last reigning monarch of Hawaii. And 1 year later, the Republic of Hawaii was established as a U.S. protectorate, with the Hawaiian-born Sanford B. Dole as president. Then, many in Congress opposed the formal annexation of Hawaii. It was not until 1898, following the use of the naval base at Pearl Harbor, that Hawaii's strategic importance became evident. And then 2 years later, Hawaii was organized into a formal U.S. territory. Then, during World War II, Hawaii became firmly ensconced in the American national identity, following the surprise attack of the Japanese in 1941. So then Eisenhower made it official in 1959, and here we have Hawaii. It's so nice to be able to go to Hawaii. Of course, not many of us who don't live there are traveling there at this moment, this year, but I have been lucky enough to visit Hawaii one time in my life. I've been to Kauai. And what a super beautiful place it is. I went to this presentation where they actually showed some of the stories of all the different settlers from different islands that came in, including Polynesia, Samoa, and Japan. It was really incredible to learn more of the history of Hawaii. So I'm so glad we have such a historically diverse state as a part of our United States. And hey, what a great day to celebrate. Yes. All right, we have lots of good news here for you today. Of course, we have bright spots about the coronavirus, more people helping out each other, amazing, inspiring people going for their dreams, and some tips about going back to school, some exciting pregnancy announcements, not from me, and even something about Japanese toilets, which is always interesting, right? So we hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll get started with an immunity study that has provided a bit of a blue sky about protection from COVID-19. We get this from CNN, and experts say that this new discovery is giving us a little bit of hope as they do immense ongoing research about COVID-19. It's a recent batch of studies, and many early stage they're in the early stages of the studies, and they're not quite peer-reviewed yet, but they show that humans have had a robust immune response to COVID-19 that may protect them from further infection, even if they only had mild symptoms. That is great news. Now, how long that protection lasts is still unclear, but the studies indicate that the immunity could last for months. Wow! One leading immunologist, it's sure the year for the immunologist, don't you think, says the findings provide optimism that people will not have to endure repeated coronavirus infections. That is a really good piece of good news about it. These studies also provide evidence that a vaccine might protect people for more than a short period of time. Dr. Ian Lipkin is the director of the Center for Infection and Immunity at Columbia University Mailman School of Public Health, and he says, the hopes that I've had appear to be realized with these early studies. Isn't that great? Somebody that's really in the thick of it knows a lot of what's going on and that's constantly trying to discover how to fix it actually is having hope. So I think that gives us a really good reason to have hope. Early in the pandemic, some scientists questioned how long the body would remember the infection and continue to produce antibodies, the proteins which make the body able to fight the infection. Now, studies showed that these antibodies decline over time and different people produce different numbers of antibodies. It's been unclear what kind of level of an antibody response is needed to provide protection. Lipkin went on by saying, this is an accumulation of more information that allows people to become more comfortable with the idea that we are going to have immunity that's going to be longer in duration. We don't know that for a fact, but there are a few things that are interesting that gave me a basis for optimism. One of the studies showed that T cells appear to be activated by this novel coronavirus. Do you know what a T cell is? T cells are important immune cells that stimulate various arms of the immune system that also attack and kill cells already infected by a virus. That is really good to know, and I had to kind of activate my 10th grade biology class there to remember what those terms meant. Now, Lipkin says that this is very good news and it's optimistic. You know, it's a bit of blue sky that we've been looking for. Oh, that is so relieving, right? The article goes on to interview Jennifer Gomerman, who worked on one of the early studies, she found that the antibody response to this novel coronavirus is actually quite durable. She says the immune response is doing exactly what we would expect it to, at least about 4 months, which is as far as most of us can measure at this point in the pandemic. Makes sense, right? Here in the United States, it's really been a prevalent issue since March, which is about 5 months ago. And so they're seeing that the immunity is lasting about 4 months, which is all the time that we've had to study it. I've been really amazed at the amount of information and help and just knowledge that has come out so quickly of this pandemic. Of course, epidemiologists, Yes. I think they are just working around the clock, really. I even have some family members that work in public health, and they are just going like mad trying to figure out more information about the virus to help people. And so I think that most people really are on the side of working hard to help us. And so it's frustrating not really to know always the best solution or when this is going to be quote unquote over. It's really exciting and gives us hope that these people are seeing good results. Now, Gomerman said that there is some decay in the level of the antibodies as one would expect in a normal immune response, but it doesn't plummet. So it sounds like if you get the coronavirus, or hopefully a similar experience by getting the coronavirus vaccine, like a similar experience for your body by getting the virus antibodies, then your body will be able to fight it off for months and months to come. They go on to evaluate Marion Pepper's study, who is at the University of Washington, and she finds that the immune response is not a one-trick pony. Instead, it's like a Swiss Army knife that has a lot of different tools for fighting the novel coronavirus. Wow, check that out. Now, Gommerman said that since scientists have not seen a record of reinfection, even with as widespread as this pandemic is, that strongly suggests that the body's immune system is working well against this threat, and reinfection is less likely. So, she says that's all good news. That means that people who are infected with this novel coronavirus should have the capacity to mount what's called a memory immune response to protect themselves against infection. Now, what remains unclear is how long the human body's response to the novel coronavirus can provide protection. That's the hard part about durability, is since you don't have forever and ever of data, we are not totally sure how long it lasts. But in conclusion, Gommerman said that the findings about this robust immunity response mean that any future vaccine should also provide protection for a useful period of time. She says, this durable immunity that we are seeing means that when we do come up with a vaccine that is well designed and is safe, a vaccine can replicate what the virus does. People need to take it when it comes along. This is all great news and really gives me hope that when the vaccine is done and it comes along, it really will help us. So that is such great news. Hang on, just hang in there. I know this is a hard and difficult and different year for everybody on the planet, but it looks like we will be out of the dark sometime in the relative soonness, right? And as always, so many good deeds are coming out of the pandemic. A local newspaper in Utah reported on a church that whose president said that the pandemic relief is still expanding. So pandemic-related humanitarian aid that has been provided during the pandemic by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has now reached 137 countries, according to statements released Sunday on the church president's social media accounts. The church has now participated in 757 coronavirus relief projects around the globe. The church's president, Russell M. Nilsson, says, "My dear friends, thank you for your efforts and your contributions during this COVID-19 pandemic. To date, the church has participated in 757 projects in 137 countries. More time and effort will be required. Together, we will overcome this difficult time." In longer statements on Instagram and Facebook, he said that the church has spent many millions of dollars on relief efforts. And the president, Nelson, said earlier this summer that COVID-19 relief is, quote, the largest ever humanitarian project of the church by any measure. Previously, the largest published church relief expenditure was $11 million the church spent to support partners in famine throughout Africa in 2017. He says that the relief comes mostly from members, which is voluntary donations from the members of the church and voluntary contribution to the humanitarian funds. Further, many members of the church have labored to render assistance to COVID-19 victims, and they have prepared and provided personal protective gear for caregivers. Thousands of women in many countries have made millions of masks. They said that they have an ongoing effort to feed the hungry and assist refugees and labor to relieve any damage caused by natural disasters whenever they can. And they do always pop up in the news streams in trying to help. And so what a great and happy thing that they had money saved up, that they were able to help during this really tough time for the whole world. And how exciting that their relief has expanded to 137 different countries. That is really great, and how awesome that whatever community we're a part of, there is something nearby where we can contribute to a cause that is doing something really good. I love that story, and I'm so grateful to hear about the stories about churches and community groups and individual families and individuals using their talents, resources, and what money that they can spare to help those most in need. All right, I hope you really enjoyed our headliner stories for today. Stay tuned, because after the break, we will learn about an inspiring man who has taken protecting his patients to a whole nother level. We'll be right back.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hey, welcome back to America's Still Beautiful, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. How's your day going so far? I really hope that you're having a very nice and good day. If you're not thinking that you have had a great day so far, maybe take a moment right now to think about what good has happened today. What's something you're grateful for that you still have? And if you do feel like you have had a great day, what is something that you can do to share that joy with somebody else? Can you give your mom a call? Can you help somebody nearby? What can you do to spread the love a little bit? Well, we want to spread the love with you because we've got a lot of really great stories continuing here on the podcast today. ABC News has reported about an amazing medical student at a hospital where he used to work as a former security guard. One doctor is working on the front lines during the coronavirus pandemic as a medical student at the same facility where he once worked as a security guard. Dr. Russell Ledet, who worked security at Baton Rouge General Medical Center for about 5 years, said that he would study medicine on note cards and ask doctors as they passed by if he could shadow them. Ledet said that while many of the medical professionals told him that they didn't have the time, Dr. Patrick Greffenstein, the chief surgery resident, was one mentor willing to take him under his wing. Dr. Ledet said, "This is one of those reflective points where you're trying to understand how far you've come and how far you've got to go." He is a U.S. Navy veteran, and he has a PhD in molecular oncology from New York University, and is currently enrolled in both the MBA program and the medical school at Tulane. Do you think this guy is a good student? Holy cow, that is very incredible. The pictures of him are so sweet. He's like posing at the hospital. He looks like a super nice guy. Now, he has returned to the exact same facility helping patients while also paving the way for other young students of color hoping to enter medicine. He calls the opportunity to treat Louisiana patients near where he grew up in Salt Lake Charles as a reminder of his, quote, humble beginnings. He says that although he's proud of how far he's come, the reality of today's racial climate has produced an ongoing trauma for him and his family. So much of what he says his wife of 14 years encourages him not to leave the house without his white coat in the car. He says it's really difficult for his family to navigate just all the difficult and bad things that there's been this year, especially for people of color, but hopefully as the world moves to a more understanding and active place in including all races in kindness and acceptance and respect, he wants to help change the image too. This 34-year-old doctor organized an image that went viral of him standing alongside his fellow black students from Tulane University's National Medical Association while wearing their white coats in front of Whitney Plantation, a former slave plantation turned museum. It really is a powerful photo, and it's captioned "Resilience is in our DNA." I just love seeing how hard that he's worked to be where he is, and remembering his roots, and also just changing history as he goes. Since that powerful moment, the company, the 15 Whitecoats, was born, which provides opportunities for minority medical students around the world. The organization's long-term goal is to start a high school in Louisiana that prepares kids to become doctors. How cool is that? Kids can start preparing even earlier if they really want to be a doctor, to learn what it takes and to get the resources that they need to make it through medical school. So additionally, Dr. Ledette says that the photos are now being used as, quote, cultural imagery so that the next generation knows what is possible. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do for kids, right? Especially who are working through school, is show them the possibilities, not just tell them, but show them the possibilities of who they can become, what they can do with their talents, and that the opportunities really are there for them no matter who they are. In closing, he says, I'm from Louisiana. Being from here and understanding a lot of health burdens and health disparities, I know if I'm not loud a bit about it, then who will be? I love how he stands up for what he believes in and uses his talents to do so much good, not only for his patients, but also for students that will probably become patients and doctors as they grow up. And it's so cool because in the picture he's standing in front of the hospital where he works, and it says that he used to be a security guard at the same hospital, and so he would write down his questions on note cards and ask the doctors to shadow them. I think that's just such a special journey and circle for him to go in, and I really admire his efforts to become a doctor. So that is really wonderful. Don't forget, if you've got a dream, if you've got something that you think that you'd be good at or that you really want to do, go for it. Put the effort in, make the plans, make your big goal and some littler goals to go along with it, because obviously, as we see in these stories all the time, it takes a lot of hard work and dedication, but of course, you can do it. Now, our next story comes from a police officer who pulled a man from a wheelchair that was stuck on the tracks within seconds of a speeding train hitting him. Whoa! Scary, and can you talk about a hero? That is amazing. So this happened in California last week when a local police officer became a hero when she pulled a man stuck in his wheelchair from the tracks within seconds of the train barreling past. Her body camera footage shows in a video the tense moments leading up to the rescue. On the morning of August 8th, around 8:45 a.m., Officer Erica Urrera jumped out of her patrol car when she saw what was about to happen. The railroad crossing arms were coming down, a train was approaching, she ran over, and after the wheelchair wouldn't budge, she pulled the anonymous man from his chair. They both fell back onto the ground and were safe, just moments before they would have been hit. The 66-year-old man suffered a leg injury, but was immediately tended by Herrera and her colleague, Officer Delgado, who had arrived at the scene to help. The team at Lodi Police Department wrote of the daring events on Facebook. This is what they wrote. Officer Herrera risked her own life to save another, and her actions prevented a tragedy today. We are extremely proud of her heroism. Oh, it's so good to read these refreshing stories and remember that there are so many good people that are out there to help and protect our citizens, and no matter what job position you hold, you can be a force for good. So this is such a wonderful story, and I'm sure he is so grateful for the officer that helped him survive. Oh, that's just a really, really wonderful story. Have you ever had like a scary situation that you've been saved by somebody? Maybe not necessarily life or death, but just in the nick of time. I feel like it kind of ranges. I used to watch, I still watch a lot of America's Funniest Home Videos. Have you seen that show? I love that show. And sometimes they do these montages of parents like barely saving their kids from falling off a swing, or like going into the pool, or like knocking down a whole stack of something. I feel like those compilations are always really funny to watch. But obviously there's a lot of more intense stories like this one where the concept of being oh so close really is closer than comfort would be, right? I'm just remembering the Japanese word for so close is, oh, she. I don't know, I'm just like remembering that, and that's so fun to say, like, oh, she's so close. All right, well, how is your quarantine baking going? Are we over the baking yet? I'm not sure. I think everyone has their own sourdough starter by now. But I do have a fun recipe to share later in the podcast. But for now, this little blog post from hometalk.com actually made it onto the news for a repurposed flower pot using napkins. Because turning old items that you already have into something new is a fun way to save money on, quote, new decor. So I thought this was a really clever idea, and this woman who made it is kind of gone viral for her ideas of changing up how flower pots look. So she says that a few years ago, I bought a flower pot at Walmart to use in an outdoor project. My plan was to use the pot as a lamp for the little table on my back porch. I put rocks in the pot and added a solar light, and that was it. It turned out really cute, and I loved the way it lit up at night. However, after a few years, the pot became stained and gross, and the solar light no longer works. I'm sure I can replace the battery and it'll be fine, but I also need a new place to put it since the porch is shaded now. So, she's decided to give the old dingy flower pot a new and updated look. And it's very cute how it turned out. So, I just want to go over the steps of how she did it. But you can find the pictures and instructions if you want to make your own on hometalk.com. So her first step was to clean the planter, and it does look like a pretty dingy little pot. And she says to clean it out the best you can. Then tape off the top and the bottom sections. So it's kind of like looking like an Oreo sandwich now. She's taped off the bottom strip and the top strip where it kind of juts out a bit. And then spray paint the middle section. She's spray painted hers white. And then after that all dries, she tapes the middle section. So the section that she just painted is now covered. And then she has spray painted the top and the bottom black. She says paint the inside of the planter the same color as the top section. I didn't paint the entire inside, especially the bottom. You just want to make sure you get around in the inside rim so it looks fresh. And then, of course, let it dry, remove the tape, and now it's looking cute already with black stripes at the top and then big white in the middle. Okay, yeah, it seriously looks like an Oreo. Am I just hungry? Possibly. But it looks like an Oreo. And then she says this is where the napkins come in. She has lots of napkins that are kind of like bits and bobs left over from parties that are different themed napkins. And so she says, grab your Mod Podge, napkins, sponge brush, and a paper plate. I love working with this stuff because it's so easy and can be used with so many projects. The first thing you want to do is separate your napkin layers. You're only going to use the top part of the napkin. Then cut your napkins into the size of the middle of your flower pot. Put a generous amount of Mod Podge on the flower pot and place the napkin on top. Smooth out any wrinkles and bubbles. Then keep in mind that the napkins are straight and that the flower pot is round. So it's better to cut the napkins into smaller pieces rather than try to wrap the whole thing around a flower pot. Have you ever tried to wrap a present that is round? Oh my goodness, it takes 5 times longer because you're just trying to do it easily the first 3 times and then you finally give up and just think, okay, I gotta do this the hard way. But anyway, this actually looks pretty easy. She's saying cut some strips of the napkins and then the cute design that you have on your napkin can be right on the flower pot. She says, do this all the way around the pot and let it dry completely. After the Mod Podge is completely dry, add another layer all over the middle section where the dry napkins are. She says that after your repurposed flower pot is completely dry, you can add a plant or decorate it with any way she wants. She chose to decorate hers with rocks and candles. It's actually pretty cute. She filled it with white rocks and put 3 candles in there. It looks very decorative and something you'd probably buy for $30 at Home Goods or at home or somewhere, Taipan Trading, somewhere like that. You could buy this at a decor store. It looks very, very cute, rustic but modern. It's a really cute idea. I thought that was fun and good for her that her little blog post there went viral. So I thought that was a really good idea. If you're getting a little bit bored, maybe look around your house and see what you could repurpose with some napkins or whatever you have laying around. It's a good time to kind of move on from the things that we don't need anymore and create something new as well. Oh, we're so glad that you are listening to the podcast today, so thank you. It's time for another break, so while you're waiting for more happy stories, sneak on over to Instagram and follow us at GSMC_America. On our Instagram, you'll find updates about new episodes. You can leave comments about our stories and even send us suggestions about what kind of stories you'd like to hear on the show. We would love to connect with you over there on Instagram. So give us a follow and I will give you more stories right after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hey, and welcome back to America's Still Beautiful, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Hey people, welcome back to our Positivity Powwow. Are you ready for some more stories? Well, I know that you're waiting with bated breath to know what snack I had during the break. I don't try. It just happens. I just always have a snack at the halfway point. And today I had like this little strawberry granola bar. They're really easy to make. My friend Emily gave me the recipe. And, I don't know, I just call it strawberry dessert. Like, you kind of like make this granola stuff and you bake it with strawberries and then add a glaze on top. Or it can be, like, healthier if you cut the sugar in half and don't do the glaze. But, anyway, have one of those. It was really yummy. Now, just a little podcast tip. Did you know that on most podcasting platforms, you can change the speed of the speaker? So if you want me to talk faster or slower, you can just go into the settings, or on many podcast players, it's just like right near the play button where you just can go to like 1.25 speed, or if you want to slow it down, you can go to like 0.9 speed. Anyway, I just think that's kind of a useful tool and it can increase your listenability and enjoyment. Now, back to your happy stories. This is a really sweet story that we have next here. It's about a caring hospital staff who helped a COVID-19 stricken groom say "I do" in a heartwarming bedside wedding ceremony. Oh my goodness, this just tugs at my heartstrings because weddings are meant to be joyous celebrations, and of course, even the best laid plans have been canceled and modified by this amazing year, 2020. Now, when Texas couple Carlos Muniz and Grace Lehman were confronted with the ultimate wedding crasher, COVID-19, it looked as if their dreams for a shared future were about to be shattered. Now, thanks to the inspired intervention of one caring nurse and his coworker, the tragedy was averted. Rather than partying with bachelor pals during the week of his scheduled wedding, the groom found himself fighting what looked to be a losing battle of coronavirus in San Antonio's Methodist Hospital ICU. He is hooked up to an advanced form of life support, and his condition continued to steadily decline. Now, after learning of his patient's derailed nuptials, nurse Matt Holdridge was immediately struck with an idea shot straight from Cupid's bow. The original ceremony may have been scuttled, but why not organize a wedding for Muniz and Lehman right in the hospital? He said that the ball just kind of got rolling from there. A lot of people started volunteering for it. But before you knew it, every nurse in the unit knew about it and was trying to figure out ways to make it more and more special. For many critically ill patients, having a positive frame of mind can sometimes be as integral as a component to recovery like medical treatment. We have seen this over and over again in research over the years. So, hey, this is very good for your health, you listening to this positivity podcast. Now, as it turned out, giving Muniz the extra incentive of matrimony proved to be just what the doctor, or in this case the nurse, ordered. With the wedding back on, Muniz rallied remarkably. The nurse said that we were able to remove his feeding tube and he was able to eat on his own and drink on his own. Everything about his overall picture got better and better. Isn't that incredible that your mind is so powerful that when you have the will to hang on and to keep going, like you can? I love hearing stories like this. The couple tied the socially distanced knot with a bedside ceremony held on August 11th. Grace wore a traditional white dress accessorized with matching veil and hospital mask. Muniz, along with his best man, the nurse, sported matching tuxedo t-shirts. Oh, it's such a sweet picture. Rather than the bride walking down the aisle, and the groom was actually wheeled in, bed and all, to the accompaniment of stirring music by a wedding party of elated hospital staffers. It's been said that marriage is about two people and weddings are for everybody else. But nowhere could that adage have been more true than on this particular occasion. Holdridge said in an interview that planning and bringing off such an uplifting event in these trying times proved to be a huge morale booster, not just for the happy couple, but for the entire hospital staff as well. The sweet nurse said, "We needed that just as much as they did." Oh, our nurses and doctors and all medical personnel are just so amazing. I can't imagine how weary they are feeling right now. And so to see a happy wedding like this inside the hospital, that's just such a special day. The nurse said in the interview that it was just the best thing that could have happened to his staff. And I guess it just goes to show that even in the age of coronavirus, sometimes love really does conquer all. You can even watch a video of their ceremony on the Good News Network website. And, it's really cute pictures as well. I really hope that he's able to recover and they have a very happy marriage. All right, now we have a really great story about Ellie Goldstein, who is a model. Now, what does modeling have to do with our great news? Well, Ellie is making strides in the fashion world because she is a beautiful, very successful model with Down syndrome. Now, the myth that diversity doesn't sell is being increasingly challenged. I love this concept. More and more of the ads that I see, like on Facebook and Instagram, are showcasing models that are not traditionally the same size or look of what we've seen for the past 100 years. And of course, those models are still very beautiful, but as we continue to include models of other races, abilities, and sizes, I think everybody can see themselves in fashion and beauty a little bit better. So earlier this summer, Gucci unveiled its latest mascara campaign, and it was starring Ellie Goldstein, an 18-year-old model with Down syndrome. The response was euphoric. Set against the able-bodied ideals of beauty, the Instagram post racked up 850,000 likes, tenfold the number of Gucci's average post. Now, the sight of Ellie was she had a raven flick of Gucci mascara, which was offset by this season's turquoise-encrusted 70s style dress. She looks stunning in it. It was a fresh rallying cry against the archaic aesthetic ideals, dispelling all arguments against inclusivity with aplomb. It was, in words of the Italian brand, their biggest liked post ever. Now, photographer, well, hold on. Just with the photo having the most likes, I think it really goes to show that the people are for the people. They love seeing diversity and positive portrayals of people of differing abilities online. And so I'm really glad that this is such a positive bright spot. Now, photographer David Hyde was chosen to shoot Ellie Goldstein, who is signed with the UK-based Zebedee Management, which represents models with disabilities and visual differences. He says the project is about embracing beauty and diversity. As a photographer with a physical disability, he confirms that half the people on the shoot also had disabilities. As a result, the published images really achieve a level of sensitive representation that is rare and authentic. Oh, what a special group. The campaign comes at a time when disabled models are more visible than ever before. For example, Gillian Mercado has recently been featured in the pages of British Vogue, and she is on the catwalk in an incredible outfit in this photo in a power wheelchair. So research has shown, though, that less than 20% of UK adverts feature minority groups. When it comes to disability representation, that exclusion is even more stark. The director of Zebedee Management, Laura Johnson, says, "We hope the Gucci campaign is a tipping point for an inclusion revolution across luxury fashion." Oh, wouldn't that be great? She founded the agency with her sister-in-law, Zoe Proctor, with the aim of creating more opportunities for all disabled people. Oh, I really like this article. They go on to say that Fashion Month is proving hardest to conquer because in the past, the agency Zebedee, which books models with disabilities, said that they have not secured any bookings for London's Fashion Week despite continually making calls to the designers. And it's very disappointing and it's difficult and change is never easy, right? But it's wonderful to see that companies are continuing to open up their original designs and really open their eyes to what the customer base actually looks like and actually feels like, and to see beautiful models like Ellie Goldstein is really inspiring. So I'm so glad that she was at the forefront of this campaign for Gucci. Now, do you have kids going back to school? Because I don't. I don't have school-age kids yet, but this really great article from KSL News gives a list about what parents can do to help emotionally prepare their children for change. And you know what? This could probably provide some emotional support for me as well. So whether you have chosen to continue to homeschool your kids at home, send them back to school because that's what you feel like is best for them, or do some kind of a hybrid. I know it was such a hard choice to make, and so congratulations on making that hard choice and doing what you feel like is best for your child. There really isn't one right answer for everybody at a time like this. So in addition to adding masks and sanitizing products to your back-to-school shopping list, it's important that parents make sure their children are emotionally prepared for some of the changes coming their way. One Kaysville mom, which is a city in Utah, she said she's taking proactive measures to help her kids have a successful year. When it comes to the upcoming school year, 9-year-old Ben said it best, "It's going to be weird and hard." Kids just really say it best, don't they? It's just the most simply. Summer is Ben's mom, and she says that despite her best efforts, online learning last spring just didn't go according to plan. She said, "I had the same pep talk every other mom had at that point. I was like, we can do this. And 2 days in, I just turned into mush." Oh my goodness. It was such an adjustment for parents and students alike, right? She said it was a lot of fights, a lot of tears, and it was a lot of accidents. What it looked like on paper was totally different than what it looked like in real life. Now, on top of homeschooling, this mom and her husband were also both working, so it made the transition even more difficult. But now the summer has passed, and she is friends with her child again, so she still wants to set up her kids for success in the school year. Her 3 kids, Ben, James, and Maddie, will attend school in person 2 days a week at their elementary school and then homeschool for the remaining 3 days of the school week. She knows there will be plenty of change ahead of them when they enter the classroom. She is teaching them about the masks and what to do to help them get ready for the school year. Now she shares some of the things that she's been doing to help her kids kind of get ready for the changes that are going to be at her school. So she has her kids put masks on when they go out just so that they're used to it. And even if a certain store doesn't require that they put on masks, she encourages her kids to wear them so that they kind of get used to wearing them for longer periods of times like they will have to in school. Now, Karen Knight, who is a licensed clinical social worker at Primary Children's Behavioral Health Clinic, says that children will be better equipped to emotionally handle change when their parents help them prepare. It's really important to talk about the why and the what. That gives them the context that they need. That's what this amazing social worker says. She says to also encourage parents to set realistic expectations. We have to be flexible and willing to adapt as things go. She says that this is especially important for families who are doing online learning. Filtering them into a place where their bodies can get just enough movement is also critical, she says. So maybe they're not going to the playground at school every day, but finding that time to get outside, play, fresh air, and moving their bodies will definitely help their learning. And we've seen that in studies again and again, right? Okay, so lastly, she says, we do our best to teach them, but I don't want them to live in fear. I don't want them to have anxiety. So it's important to teach them, but also show them that you are optimistic about the situation and that things are going to be okay, and we're going to be able to try our best and deal with challenges as they come. So I thought those were some great tips about helping kids get back into the groove of school. I hope it's going well for you wherever you are. And hey, we even have more stuff coming up. So I hope you're enjoying the show so far. It's time for one more break. Now, would you ever use a transparent public bathroom stall in the park? What? Sounds crazy, but find out why it may be the greatest idea for a public restroom in history right after this.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the show. It's GSMC, America Still Beautiful. I'm Brooklyn, your host, and I'm just having such a blast. Thanks for joining me today for these amazing stories. We have a few more before the end here, and I think you're really going to like it. This is so weird, but I really enjoyed reading this story. NPR reports on the transparent public toilets that were unveiled in Tokyo parks. But they also offer privacy. Let's dive into this. You've got to see the pictures on these. We'll post them on our Instagram. They are, you'd never think I would say this, but they're gorgeous bathroom stalls. Now, the idea of using a public bathroom with see-through walls may sound like the stuff of nightmares, but a famous Japanese architect is hoping to change that view using vibrant colors and new technology to make restrooms in Tokyo parks more inviting. This is so interesting. Of course, I think I've mentioned before that I lived in Japan, and the culture there is just so very accommodating to everyone. Everyone, their attitude is very polite towards others, and inventions are constantly being thought of to make life better. It's a really exciting place to be, and including the bathroom, because the toilets are so fancy there. Most of them have bidets, many have heated seats, automatic flush functions, and also even some play sound effects of running water or something, just like white noise, so you don't have to hear anybody go to the bathroom. Now, Shingeruban gave this statement about while they were introducing their new, amazing park restrooms. He said, there are two things we worry about when we're entering a public restroom, especially those located in a park. The first is cleanliness, and the second is whether anyone is inside. Now, transparent walls can address both of these worries by showing people what awaits them inside. After users enter the restroom and lock the door, the powder room's walls turn into a powdery pastel shade, and they're no longer see-through. Using a new technology, we make the outer walls with glass that becomes opaque when the lock is closed, so that a person can check inside before entering. Isn't that cool? So you can see totally through it. It's totally clear. You can see that it's clean. You can see no one's in there. There's no anxiety. But as soon as you lock the door, boop, the glass totally goes opaque and you are completely in private. The pictures are incredible of this. I mean, I never thought I'd be like Christmas lights level excited about these pictures of bathrooms. It's so cool. The group behind the Tokyo Toilet Project is enlisting world-famous architects to create toilets like you've never seen before. Who we talked about before, Shingeru Ban, his transparent facilities are sure to be a conversation starter for anyone visiting the park, and they'll stand out even more after dark. He says at night the facility lights light up in the park like a beautiful lantern. This project's eye-catching toilets are a part of a plan to put people at ease when visiting a public bathroom, a prospect that can trigger a number of responses from relief to trepidation. The project may seem frivolous, but the 16 architects who are reimagining public toilets are some of the brightest names in Japanese architecture. The list includes 4 Pritzker Prize winners, Ban Toyo-ito, Tadao Ando, and Fumihiko Maki, along with international stars such as Kengo Kuma and Sue Fujimoto. The fashion designer Nigo is also contributing. These bathrooms do indeed look very fashionable. There's like, the color schemes work really well together too. The one I'm looking at right now is like turquoise stall, and then like a slightly darker turquoise, then a lime green, and then like a cerulean blue. Yeah, how's that for I looked at paint swatches one time at Home Depot. Now the Nippon Foundation, which Nippon just means Japan, is redesigning 17 public toilets in Shibuya, one of Tokyo's busiest shopping and entertainment districts. The foundation is working with the local government to deploy 2 of Japan's natural strengths, devotion to cleanliness and design, to address public necessity. The well-known toilet company Toto, famous for toilets that coddle users with features such as heated seats, bidets, and deodorizers, will, quote, advise on toilet equipment and layout. Now, Bon's colorful bathrooms opened to the public this month at 2 parks, Yoyogi Fukamachi Mini Park and the Haru no Ogawa Community Park. Others bespoke commodes will be opening in coming months. Honestly, this story is really fun. If you want to see pictures, I think I'll put these pictures up on our Instagram. So peek over there and you can see them. Okay, more baby news. I've got it for you because I just couldn't resist this double trouble over here. Identical twin sisters who married identical twin brothers both announce their pregnancies. That's right, in addition to being cousins, these children will also be genetic siblings. This is really amazing and a little bit weird. So these twins, identical twins, Brittany and Brianna, married identical twins, Josh and Jeremy. And on Friday, they announced that they were both expecting babies. The couples who first made headlines when appearing on TLC's Our Twin Sane Wedding shared the news in this Baywatch-themed Instagram post. It's kind of cute. They're in superhero. They are in swimming suits, and the girls are pregnant visibly, and they have a swimsuit that's red that says Baby Watch. So that's cute. The girls wrote, "Guess what? Both couples are pregnant." And they wrote this alongside a photo showing Josh and Jeremy dressed up as lifeguards, while Brittany and Brianna showed off their baby bumps in one-piece red bathing suits, reading Baby Watch. They said, "We are thrilled and grateful to experience overlapping pregnancies and to share this news with you all. Our children will not only be cousins, but full genetic siblings and quaternary multiples. So interesting. We can't wait to meet them and for them to meet each other. It is very cute. They look like one big happy family here. And this baby news comes almost exactly 2 years after the couples tied the knot in a joint ceremony, of course, at the 2018 Twin Days Festival in Twinsburg, Ohio, where they had first met the year prior. They were married by identical twin ministers in the ceremony themed Twice Upon a Time. At the time, Brittany, who is married to Josh, told in an interview that they were excited to all live in the same house and raise their children all together. She said, "When we have children, my and Josh's children will be genetic siblings to Brianna and Jeremy's children. So even though they're cousins, they'll technically be genetic siblings. We imagine it will be like 2 moms and 2 dads raising our families together." And the sisters have been long immersed in twin subculture. And it definitely seems like it. They dress alike, they went double dating, and considered themselves 2 halves of a whole. So there wasn't much trouble when they set out to plan their joint wedding. It's really been a fairy tale come true. Marrying twins is something that's very important to us, is what Brianna said. And she described her wedding ceremony as a double fairy tale. She says, "Even when we were little girls, I can remember being in kindergarten knowing that this is what we saw for ourselves. We knew the chances were incredibly scarce. The stars had to align for our dreams to come true. I get to marry the man of my dreams. At the same time, I get to look over next to me when my twin sister is marrying the man of her dreams." This article amazes me. I did not know about these twins marrying the twins when they did a couple of years ago. I think it's very fun. And, they seem happy as clams. So good for them getting along so well as siblings and also wanting to all be together as a big happy family. So I wonder if any of them will have twins and if they will look anything like their siblings' kids. I bet they will all look very much alike. So that'll be so interesting to continue to see play out. All right, lastly for you today, I have a bit of a treat. I read on Studio 5's news website a recipe that they're sharing for edible chocolate chip cookie dough. Let me repeat that. Edible chocolate chip cookie dough. You know how on the box that of the, mix or the frozen Toll House cookie dough, it always says, "Do not eat raw dough," but everyone has done it. But now there is a safe way to do it. There is a recipe that you can make, and it's actually just has household ingredients that you probably have in your pantry already. This recipe is by the Balsamic Baker on Instagram, and she showed up on this news report to share the amazing recipe. So if you want to take a little break from your bread baking, you can make this. It just requires softened butter, light brown sugar, white sugar, some vanilla, a tablespoon of heavy cream, 5 ounces of flour. Now this is the kicker part. You got to heat treat it to 165 degrees. And she just says to microwave it for 2 minutes, and that will cook it enough to be safely edible. That's so cool. I never even thought about something like that. She says you can throw in a teaspoon of baking powder, which is optional because you'll need it if you are going to bake this cookie dough, or it kind of adds to the authentic taste of cookie dough if you want to still throw it in without baking it. A little bit of salt, and of course chocolate chips. I definitely want to give this a try. I think it sounds absolutely delicious, and hey, I'm just really grateful that she shared the recipe, because I thought you just had to be guilty about eating cookie dough every time you did, but turns out there are edible versions. Oh, very exciting. Well, I'm just so glad that you were here on the podcast today. Of course, I'm going to send you out with a little, one of my favorite quotations. It goes like this: "That with which you persist in doing becomes easier to do. Not that the nature of the thing has changed, but that your ability to do the thing has increased." I love that because it can be difficult to remember to be patient in whatever we're pursuing, whether it's something that we chose or something that's kind of just happening around us. But don't forget, having that positive attitude, being diligent, and processing our emotions in a healthy way will support us, and we will be able to get through this and So keep persisting, keep doing, and things will get easier. Thank you so much for listening to the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast. It's brought to you, of course, by the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Please subscribe to us to show that you care and to always be notified about new episodes. We've got like 4 new episodes a week. I hope that you're enjoying them so far. Don't forget to connect with us on social media. You can find GSMC America Still Beautiful on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Now be kind to others because you are worth it.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast.